I can hear you.
All right. You know, I'll tell you one thing. One thing that I feel like, you know, has stuck with me over the years is how, you know, basically, like, the sacred commitment of marriage is worth keeping sacred because, you know, like, I mean, that's kind of the thing, right? It's like it kind of, it's that, it's like, it's an added, it's like, why not? You know, like what is there, you know, like if one is, you know, if one can earn that, I mean, but that's the thing, everybody's different, but you know, if one is capable of reaching a point where, I mean, I remember Jordan Peterson actually kind of touched on this at one point. He said something about how, you know, making marriage, you know, something that is not easily attainable is not a bad practice by a culture or society. And, you know, I feel like he expressed that because that's the thing. I mean, really, you know, I mean, think about it, right? If it's flimsy, you know, you're going to have this, you know, you're going to be putting children and people eventually into a situation where they may not have, you know, well, they may go through excess amounts of trauma that will then trickle out from that person in a way that will just, you know, add to excessive chaos. And, you know, it just doesn't really, it's just not something that leads to peace overall. You know what I mean? You know, because while we do need to face the chaos, you know, while that is a part of a grown-up's responsibility, you know, an adult or a mature, you know, soul human being, you know, that's just a part of life. I mean, embracing the change, facing the change, dealing with the change, whatever the change may be, you know, the capability to face it, you know, to acknowledge it, to be one with it, or to at least dance with it, to, you know, work with it, deal with it. While for a child, you know, the child obviously needs layers of security and layers of time for the child to absorb with, you know, in its own way, you know, its environment, learn its environment for itself as much as possible, you know, not for itself, but you get what I'm saying. But, you know, just, you know, anyway, but so going back to like this whole thing with my love story, right? It's like, I mean, you know, because I think about, I mean, there's so many layers to it with Bernice, like, because that's the whole thing. Going back to the whole topic about how, you know, I told her te amo, you know, like what Eckhart Tolle says is like, again, it's never expressed because he says perhaps true love is just as rare. You know, true love, right? Unconditional kindness, unconditional, like, you know, I remember Bernice one time, she asked me, she says, you know, how do you know you're in love with me? Or how do you know you love me? And you don't love, or, you know, the idea of me. And I was like, to me, it sounds like you're, you know, you're complicating the situation because maybe, yeah, you have not found enough value in yourself, or, you know, your situation has been so challenging that, you know, you're distancing yourself because you don't want to, create problems for somebody else, or, you know, whatnot. But to me, it's like, you know, you, in the same way, you're trying to say, you know, I cannot decide for you. You also cannot decide for me. If I'm telling you, that, I feel this way and so forth,
Yeah, also, what does it
yes,
even mean?
Of course, I can't,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, just, of course there are some things, it's kind of like, she's like, well, how do you know? Again, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. But it's like, that's the thing. It's kind of like, what we used to talk about, like, with happiness, joy being a choice. It's kind of like, at the end of the day, inside yourself, you can say thank you. You can say, I'm sorry. You can say, I love you. You can say, forgive me, or, you can say the things that no matter how trite they may come off, even within yourself, again, it's, it shows that you're, that you can, that you're at least not avoiding it. You're not avoiding that possibility, that narrative, that notion, that vibration. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? And that's why I feel like, what were you going to say? You were about to say something.
No, just I wonder what she even really meant by that. I mean, I heard that from Family Guy, that joke about, like, the therapist or whatever. You're not in love, or you're not in love with me. You're in love with the idea of me. That Barbara Streisand, joke or whatever. I forget who it was, but there's a Family Guy joke about that. It must come from a movie or something, and maybe it's. But, like, I wonder what they really mean by that. Do you know?
What do you mean?
Well, when Bernice said, "Do you love me or do you love the idea of me?" Because what does that even mean?
Well, what does she mean by that? What does she mean by that? Well, I think that, I've thought about it, and what I've gained from, my reflection on it is, I think that it's kind of like the forbidden fruit in a way. If you spend too much time without something that you then are presented with the availability to, that short-term experience may turn into a lot more in the mind and in the body without it being understood in a greater context.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like for example, like what she could have been thinking of with us is that basically, it's like, well, what if we have kids and I become, I become a certain way that you find intolerable? Will you still want me? Will you still want to stay with me? And rather than the idea of, or the experience, that short-term, whatever experience that we had, you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, so you see, this is the thing. I feel like you're right. People overcomplicate this so much. I've always seen marriage as really just extending your family. Like, why are we so obsessed with these things when it comes to marriage? But like, I've never like said, well, will you still love me, bro? 7 years from now, 10 years from now? It's like, dude, what the fuck? I mean, have you ever meditated on that? Like, we overcomplicate this so much. Family, like, marriage is just extending your family, dude. Like, why are we overcomplicating this shit? Like, yeah, I might fucking hate you sometimes. Like, I might fucking hate you for 10 years. Like, I don't know. We've like, dude, when you have family, sometimes you might come to hate them for like decades and decades. Yeah. They're still your fucking family. Right. That's how this shit works. Right. Why are we overcomplicating this? And I feel like women are the worst offenders at this. Like, well, what is this? The idea of me shit. Like, dude, it's just, we're just extending our family here. I mean, I love you. I love the idea of you. I think I love you. I mean, I love my brother. I think I love the idea of him. I love my parents. I think I love what are we even talking about here? Like, why? What is with this obsession? I mean, why does it have to be so complicated? I think it's because fundamentally, man, like, this might sound misogynistic, but I think women just don't want to commit, dude. I think they just don't want to commit. And to be fair, if women make the wrong choice, I mean, they're fucked on an evolutionary scale that we're not. So it makes sense that they have a harder time committing, because us men, we can just fuck other chicks. We don't have to like ditch our chick to fuck another chick, right? get her pregnant. I'm not saying we would do that, but I'm just saying evolutionarily speaking, it does make sense, I guess. Like, this is a misunderstanding. People think men are hardwired to be less faithful than women. I mean, but there's some truth to that, but it depends what you mean by unfaithful. Men are certainly more hardwired to fuck women, that are not their spouse more than men are to just randomly fuck men that are not their husband. But when I hear unfaithful, I mean like switching to another man. And men are just not programmed the same way to switch from woman to woman. And because, evolutionarily, there's no reason to, because historically a man can have more than one woman. Obviously, because of Jesus, basically, at least in the West, saying, that essentially the standard for the woman was actually the standard for both men and women all along, which was you can only marry one person. Because God always reveals himself to, through the stone that the builder refused. Women were the stone that the builder refused, but anyway.
It's interesting. I mean,
people
go ahead.
People overcomplicate it. It's like family, and that's why like fucking divorcing and remarrying, I think as a man hurts so much because it's like that doesn't even make sense from this model. You can't. It's like you go like say you're not my brother anymore. I know this new guy's my brother. Like what even is this? Like you can't change this. Like this is like I'm sorry however you feel, bro, but like but in what deluded state do you think you can just say we're not brothers anymore and some other random guy's my brother? Like, what doesn't even make sense? I mean, when you think about it in the context of anything else in our family relationship, divorce and remarriage makes no sense. I mean, as much as we might hate our family members sometimes, we're still our family. You can't change that. I always thought that that's the same way marriage works. I mean, and so one of the reasons why I'm attracted to Catholicism is that's 100% what the Catholic Church teaches.
The thing is, though, is that, like, I agree with you, and I think that, like, that's the thing. You can't change your blood. That's obvious. But one thing, the elephant in the room, I think, is that basically there are certain things. I mean, like if we're using biblical stories, right? Where there's you have who was it? Lot that sleeps with his daughters. It was Lot, right?
I don't know, dude. I should know this more, but something like that.
But there are certain things where it's kind of like, well, that is a line crossed, right? Where it's like, because again, it's gonna affect, it's gonna affect the, at the very minimum, it's going to affect, the reputation. There's gonna be at least some effects, undeniable effects in the greater context of things,
Yeah, well, that's talking about something else that is related to family and stuff, or I don't know.
But see, that is family though, and it's like, and I mean, for you and me as brothers.
Even if you do fucked up stuff like that, it doesn't make you not family, although it does make you rightfully not want to. I don't even know. I don't even understand.
But yeah, you might not be able to face your family in those types of certain circumstances, right?
I mean, sometimes your family might even legit be evil, but that still doesn't logically mean they're not your family. Like, I feel like it's really actually not that complicated.
Right.
At the end of the day, if you think somebody is not your family when they are, you're just deluded. That's the term for you. But for some reason, we don't think the same way in terms of marriage. Like I said, your spouse could be horrible. Your spouse actually could legit be evil. There are some circumstances where maybe you should have nothing to do with your spouse, but yet it is still just. You could just objectively look at it the same way as family. Like family is family, and it's not. I'm not saying other than just that. I always used to think that this is just a brute statement of fact. So it either is or it isn't. And I'm telling you, Sal,